might seem crazy what I'm about to say.
So yeah, this notion of where you are in life, how you find peace and purpose in that is something that really came home to me probably about 10 years ago or so. I worked for a church. The first job that I had out of university was as an intern at a church, and that kind of turned into being on full-time staff. And I worked in Boston, and a lot of the people who worked or a lot of the congregants in the church were in the tech sector. They were computer programmers, network administrators, and stuff like that. And then in the late 90s, there was this dot-com bust, the first venture into the internet, and a lot of these small companies that were coming with venture capital all just went bankrupt. And probably 75% of, 50 to 75% of our church had to go and find work elsewhere, and our operating budget shrunk pretty substantially. And so at the end, we kind of had to, more and more staff was made redundant, and finally it was just me and the head pastor left standing. And so I had to go. And the church was really great about it. They let me know, everybody knew that this was on the horizon and that the budget was very quickly withering away. And so they said, hey, you're going to be made redundant in 8 months, barring a miracle, which didn't happen. So start looking for work now. And at that time, I had been working for the church for 5 years, and I was a program director and oversaw drama teams, production, tech teams, and I was on the preaching team. And so I looked for work for 8 months and could find nothing. I looked all across America, and in 8 months of CVs being sent out, I got 2 interviews. And so I had to just get a job. And so I was made redundant, and a couple weeks later I found a job at the Home Depot, which is how Americans say Bunnings. So I started mixing paint. And I had a really hard time with that. People had been telling me how much they loved my teaching ministry, how much God spoke to them through the way in which I ministered, that God moved through the way I served. And the only job I could get was mixing paint. What I learned over time was that being a minister follows you no matter where you are. I learned that while I was mixing paint with people that I got to know and that I got to care about and I got to love. Friends who are still friends of mine today. And I just pastored. I didn't even, at the time I didn't even know I was doing it, and at the time it was still so difficult for me to do. To deal with all of this spiritual and emotional conflict of why can't I serve God? Why is the only and I had to learn a lot of humility through this too. Even to have the question be, why is the only thing I can do mix paint? Shows the arrogance that I held in my heart. And the lack of value I gave to a lot of things. Those are issues that I worked through. And over time, I kind of came, and by over time, I do mean 3 years. This isn't something that occurred to me in a week and a half. But I came to learn that ministry work, if you think that ministry work is something only done by people who are on staff at a church, you don't understand the nature of the ministry of the church. And if you think that you have to be on paid staff in order to be fulfilled in being a minister, someone who genuinely witnesses to what God has done in Jesus Christ, you don't understand the nature of what it means to be a faithful follower of Jesus now and here. And I had to learn that lesson. I took the scenic route on that. You learn a lot about life when you work with people that work at Home Depot. You don't. I didn't work with these people when I was at the church. People who were still, who were functioning alcoholics, people who were cocaine addicts, heroin addicts, people who are actively, sleeping around on their husbands and wives, and people who are broken in the midst of all of it. And so, I had a friend who had bone cancer, he would drink 500 ml of vodka a night. He didn't have a driver's license, so people around the store would give him a ride home. And he would lie about where he lived, so that we would drop him off at a parking lot that was just around the corner from the liquor store that he went to. So he could go and buy his vodka and then go home, and he'd pass out every night on the couch. And Al had bone cancer in his arm. And he would tell me, and for whatever reason, people talked to me. And he'd tell me when he was going in for his bone scans, and I'd just say, "Hey, Al, can I pray for you?" And miracle of miracles, Al said, "Yeah." So I told Al that I was praying for him. And that meant a lot. To my knowledge, Al never stopped drinking all that vodka. Also, to my knowledge, I'm the only person who cared about Al. I learned how to be happy being a minister in a way that I would have never learned had I always stayed in the church. And again, there's a tendency to think that the people who get their paychecks from, and on the paycheck it says church, that they are somehow everything from the spiritual elite to the people who do the ministry stuff, and all the other people are schmoes who go around and do whatever. I've moved around a fair bit in the past 5 or 6 years. What I've learned is that no matter where I go, I pastor, because it's who I am. When I'm in my academic program, build community and tend after the people who are there, because it's just what I do. I may stay at this church for 20 years, I might stay here at 5, I don't know, wherever I go. I'll build community, because God has really done something in Jesus Christ. That's really real. Those who are faithful witnesses to that never give up on the light in the darkness. Always fight it, and the way we fight it is by building community and caring for one another and carrying one another through our life together. And if I do that from up front in a church, I do it from up front in church. And if I do it driving a forklift again, I'll be really happy, because driving a forklift is a lot of fun. But I don't care. It's not about where my paycheck comes from anymore.
Clap along if you feel